Star Wars The Acolyte has come and gone. 7s and 8s of fans are still clamoring on Twitter, calling for Disney to renew The Acolyte for a season 2. But with extremely poor ratings, a less than ideal production budget, and an even more apathetic Star Wars fan base, can you really blame Disney for remaining silent on the issue? The overall narrative of The Acolyte was promised to be resolved in a satisfying way within the 8 episodes of the season. Well, this was a blatant lie from showrunner and former personal assistant to Harvey Weinstein, Leslye Headland. The Acolyte is a mystery box show spending nearly all 8 episodes alluding to conflicts and plot points that never get answered, explored, or explained. So each week, for the past 8 weeks, Headland has done interviews with access media outlets to explain, or rather, invent answers to the many, many unanswered questions the Acolyte has put forth. Oh, and don't worry, this week's answers are anything but satisfying. In fact, Star Wars is just propaganda now. Hello, my friends, and welcome to The Pondering. I am the real-life fake wizard. If this video brings you any value at all, I invite you to subscribe to this channel, where we are making new videos nearly every day. If we were to sum up the original Star Wars films, they can be reduced down to a man who finds the shred of goodness inside his corrupted father, saving him from the hell he has brought upon himself. If we were to take a similar meta-psychological analysis of The Acolyte, the plot boils down to a woman who kills her adoptive father to go live with her drug-dealing boyfriend that puts holes in drywall and drinks Monster Energy drinks while avoiding outstanding warrants with the local police. I wish I were joking, but this is almost all but confirmed. Headland had said that she wanted to tell a Sith story, to explore a narrative where the Sith are the focal point. Well, we've seen lots of Sith stories before. Revenge of the Sith is about Anakin's fall becoming a Sith. Knights of the Old Republic is a Sith story. The Old Republic has multiple Sith stories. There have been countless books and comics from the perspective of the Sith. And the one thing that all those stories I just mentioned have in common is that they are told within the overarching canon that the Sith are still the villains of the galaxy. A Sith character might see themselves as a good guy, fighting the Jedi who oppose them. But as viewers in the audience, we know that the Jedi should be the good guys and the Sith should be the bad guys. Star Wars is dissimilar to Game of Thrones, which explores character perspectives and eyes of the beholder, and everyone is the protagonist of their own story. The villain is the hero of the other side kind of thing. Star Wars is, and has always been, binary good and bad. That is how George Lucas intended it, and those values hold true even in the sequel films. The Jedi are flawed, but to their core, they are still good. They are heroes for the audience to look up to aspire to be. According to the Acolyte showrunner, no, not at all. After 8 episodes, the Jedi are turned into morally bankrupt, over-emotional, guilt-ridden crybabies that lie, murder, and off themselves over PTSD. A poor representation of mental illness, I might add. Taking the heroes that we used to look up to and reducing them down to be just as selfish and self-centered as the Sith. Episode 8 wastes expensive minutes lecturing the audience about how the Jedi are liars, lying to themselves and others about their religious morals, and strides to control their emotions. This wasn't a senator talking to a Jedi. This is Leslye Headland judging you, the viewer, for having looked up to the Jedi for nearly 50 years. And it gets a lot worse. I said earlier that the overall message of The Acolyte, the takeaway, is that it's about a daughter rejecting her father. Well, that is what Headland believes she's portraying by having Osha murder her adoptive father in the show's conclusion. If the original trilogy is about saving your father, forgiving your father, The Acolyte says, kill your father. Headland's conflict resolution of Osha murdering Soul is what she believes is the equivalent of a daughter surpassing her father's benign sexism. Quote, you're absolutely right. There's this thing called benign sexism, and part of it is this paternal protectionism. It seems like this good thing, but there's this, I have to protect you from everything. I have to make sure you're okay. I have to tell you what track to get on, and then once you're on that track, I need to support you. Ultimately, what happens is, again, this is a father-daughter relationship. As women evolve in their lives and develop their own personalities separate from their fathers, at some point they have to reject that protectionism. I'm genuinely baffled by this. This statement has put me into a position where I feel compelled to explain and defend fathers for being fathers. The Acolyte is not art. It's not a continuation of the Star Wars story. It is a product pushing a propagandist message to reject your family, reject your father. Headland's interpretation of paternal protectionism as, quote, benign sexism is a gross mischaracterization of a father's love. To brand a father's natural instinct to protect his daughter as sexist is a thinly veiled attack on the protective role that fathers play, painting it as inherently oppressive rather than supportive. This approach is, at its core, misandrist, as it positions men, and fathers in particular, as obstacles to be overcome rather than figures of support and love. It perpetuates a stereotype that men's intentions are always suspect and their actions are invariably oppressive. A blanket condemnation that's deeply harmful to the fabric of family relationships. It ignores the reality that many fathers strive to empower their sons and daughters. Can you say you'd want your kids to watch something like this? See, it would be different if the show played off Soul's murder like he was a monster. It would be Osha conquering the beast that was holding her back. But Soul loved Osha like a daughter. It would be different if the show played it off like Osha was losing herself by murdering Soul, that she did it and it was wrong. Instead, the show plays it like Osha is a hero for killing Soul in cold blood, and her sisters smirking while she does it, then embracing with hugs and tears as if they've conquered the beast. But Soul isn't a beast. He was a father, an extremely flawed father. You know, like how most fathers are. Flawed! The Acolyte is propaganda. Not even like political propaganda, Republican or Democrat. It's not even that. It's not even on that level. And I don't even like talking about this. My content is not about this divide and talking politics. I want to talk about stories. I want to talk about the good stories and the bad stories and the flaws therein. How one can improve their storytelling by pointing out when things don't make sense. That's what I want my content to be. But The Acolyte is actually worse than taking a stance on political ideology. It's worse than that. Reject your morals, reject your family, reject your father, reject your heroes, embrace self-gratification. What do you want, Osha? That's what matters most. No, religious ideals are for morons. Sacrifice is for squares. Your self-importance, hedonism, matters more than your father's love and affection. The show is contemptible. No, I wouldn't want my kids to watch this. I wouldn't want my kids to learn lessons in morality from Harvey Weinstein's former personal assistant. This show reeks of narcissism, written from a place of negativity from bad faith actors who felt compelled to self-insert themselves into a narrative they shouldn't have touched. It's blatant perversion. When a writer or a filmmaker or a storyteller writes a story, it makes sense that they would use their life experiences as reference points to inform on the plot, create the characters. That's especially the case when a writer is developing something entirely original on their own, something that doesn't have nearly 50 years of history associated with it. Headland's approach to making a Star Wars has been to bastardize everything that has come before, self-insert herself and her misandrist ideology into the overarching Star Wars story, retroactively changing everything that has come before it. If it's not obvious, I have to say I'm still shaken by this atrocious show. Like, say what you want about the sequel films. In hindsight, J.J. Abrams tried to tell a Star Wars story with The Force Awakens. Not so much with Rise of Skywalker. Rian Johnson subverted expectations, but he didn't self-insert bullshit narratives that mirrored a bad relationship with his sister, which is something Headland has since admitted to writing with in mind for The Acolyte. I do not want a second season of this show. Star Wars truly is a shadow of what it once was. I wouldn't even call myself a Star Wars fan anymore. I have Star Wars stuff all over my place, and I don't look at it the same anymore. After suffering through The Acolyte, it all feels different now. And I know that there's a lot of you and a lot of viewers and a lot of people who feel the exact same way. Star Wars used to be inspiring, but now it represents psychopathic, selfish ideologies. And I can't stand it. Again, this isn't even like political. This is just nihilistic. Disney Star Wars is a perversion of what George Lucas originally created, and it should be unequivocally rejected. My friends, I want to thank you for watching this Pondering episode. If you would, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you are new. If you didn't like anything I had to say, thank you for hanging out this long. And until next time, create, innovate, inspire. May the Force be with you. And for the love of God, cancel Disney Plus if you have it. Because we can't stand for this. We have to talk with our wallets, even if we talk alone. Bye-bye!